The twin suns burned above the red skies of Vexar Prime as the crowd filled the great arena. The sound of alien drums echoed through the valley, deep and powerful, shaking the sand-covered ground. Thousands of alien warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, shouting the name of their champion, Princess Kalira, the undefeated daughter of the Vexar King. She was known across the galaxy as the unyielding warrior. No one had ever made her bow. Kalira stood tall in the center of the arena, her silver armor shining under the harsh light. Her four eyes glowed like molten gold, and her sharp tail moved slowly behind her, a symbol of her deadly precision. Her voice carried across the crowd as she raised her spear. "I will obey only the one who can defeat me," she declared. "None have succeeded. None ever will." The crowd roared in agreement. To them, this was not just a challenge, it was pride, honor, and tradition. The Vexar race respected strength above all things. Then the massive gates opened with a hiss and silence fell. A single human walked out. He was tall but not massive. His body was covered in simple combat gear, nothing compared to the heavy armors of the Vexar warriors. His brown hair moved with the dry wind, and his calm blue eyes stared straight at Kalira. He carried no weapon other than a short staff and a small blade at his side. The crowd burst into laughter. A human? Against Kalira? They mocked him loudly. Some threw dust toward the arena floor, but the human didn't react. He kept walking until he stood face to face with her. His name was Ryan Cross, a human explorer from Earth. Kalira looked down at him with a smirk. You challenge me?" Ryan nodded once. "Yes, I came for the trial." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Do you even understand what this means, human? If you lose, you die. If you win, you command me." "I understand," he said calmly. The Vexar King laughed from his throne above. "Let him try. Let the human learn what real strength means." The drums began again, faster this time. The crowd shouted Kalira's name. The dust rose around them. And then, in a flash of motion, the battle began. Kalira moved first. She was a blur of muscle and energy, her spear cutting through the air like lightning. Ryan barely dodged the first strike. It sliced the air inches from his chest. He rolled to the side, using his small staff to block the next hit, but the impact sent a shock up his arm. She was strong, inhumanly strong. She attacked again and again, each blow harder than the last. But Ryan didn't fight back yet. He was watching her, studying her rhythm, her stance, her timing. Kalira snarled in frustration. "Fight, human! Stop running!" Ryan smiled faintly. "I'm learning." That answer only made her angrier. She swung low, trying to sweep his legs, but he jumped over the attack, landing lightly. Then, with a sudden move, he tapped her spear shaft near the center with his staff, twisting it out of her hands. The weapon fell into the sand. The crowd gasped. Kalira's tail whipped toward him instantly, but Ryan ducked. He moved faster now, every step measured. He was smaller, but his movements were precise, efficient. He didn't rely on brute strength, he relied on timing and skill. Kalira recovered quickly, charging at him with her bare hands. She struck his chest, and he stumbled backward, coughing from the impact. But even as he struggled for breath, he smiled again. "You rely too much on power," he said quietly. "Not enough on control." That sentence hit her harder than any blow. She lunged again, but he sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and used her own weight to flip her over his shoulder. She hit the ground hard. The crowd went silent. Ryan didn't move to strike. He simply stood over her. "Yield," he said softly. Kalira's eyes widened. No one had ever dared say that to her before. She growled, rising again. "Never!" She swung at him once more, but this time Ryan caught her wrist and twisted it, forcing her to her knees. He didn't break her bones or cause pain. He simply applied pressure, just enough to show mastery. The crowd could not believe what they were seeing. The human had made the unyielding warrior kneel. Ryan stepped back and released her. She stayed on her knees, breathing heavily, her heart racing not with anger but confusion. He should have finished her. He should have claimed victory with blood. But he didn't. Instead, he looked at her with quiet respect. "You fought well," he said. "You don't need to obey me. I didn't come to conquer. I came to prove something." She stared at him, eyes wide, chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. "Prove what?" she asked. Ryan looked up toward the alien king watching from above. "That humans are not weak," the crowd murmured. The drums stopped. The alien king leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Kalira remained silent. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. As Ryan walked away, the alien princess felt something strange in her chest, a mix of pride, confusion, and something she had never felt before. The one who defeated her had shown mercy, and that mercy felt more powerful than any victory she had ever known. She didn't know it yet, but from that day on she would never leave his side. The arena was silent. Only the sound of Conqueror's slow breathing filled the air. She was still on one knee, her hand pressed into the sand, her eyes locked on the human who had dared to defeat her. No one had ever forced her down before. Not once in her entire life. Ryan stood a few steps away, calm and steady. The wind brushed his hair and carried the red dust between them. Around the arena, thousands of alien eyes watched in disbelief. The mighty Vexar princess, their champion, had been humbled by a human. Conqueror rose slowly, her golden eyes burning brighter. The crowd began to chant her name again, urging her to stand, to fight, to destroy the outsider. Her honor demanded it. Her pride screamed for vengeance, but Ryan didn't move. He stood like a statue, his staff resting lightly in his hand. There was no fear in his eyes, only patience. "You want another round," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. "Then stand. I'll give you one." Conqueror gritted her teeth and took her stance. The muscles along her arms tightened and her tail lashed behind her. She lunged forward again, faster than before. Her movements were sharper, more dangerous, filled with fury and shame. Ryan blocked one strike, then another, spinning backward just in time to avoid a hit from her tail. She followed with a kick that cracked the sand beneath him, but he sidestepped and struck her wrist with the end of his staff. She hissed in pain, spinning to strike again, but he caught her arm and pushed her off balance. Their movements became like a storm, sand flying, air trembling with energy. The duel wasn't about winning anymore. It was about pride and understanding. Each move tested not just strength but heart. The alien crowd began to quiet. They could see it now. The human wasn't fighting to humiliate her. He was fighting to match her, to understand her. Every move he made was precise, not wasteful. He wasn't trying to destroy. He was trying to prove. Conqueror's anger started to fade, replaced by something strange. Curiosity. He didn't look at her like an enemy. He looked at her like an equal. When their weapons clashed again, she spoke through gritted teeth. "You fight like no other human I've faced." Ryan smiled slightly. "Maybe you've never really fought a human before." Her eyes narrowed. "Then show me what humans truly are." He nodded. "As you wish." The next moment he moved faster than she expected. Instead of attacking directly, he ducked low, swept her legs, and as she fell, he twisted her spear away, planting his staff across her throat, not to harm her, but to hold her still. Conqueror froze. Ryan leaned close enough for only her to hear. "A true warrior knows when to stop fighting." The words hit her harder than any strike. The arena went completely silent. Even the alien king on his throne leaned forward, eyes wide. No one dared speak. The human had not only beaten her again, he had done so without cruelty, without anger. Ryan stepped back, releasing her once more. He dropped his staff into the sand and bowed slightly. "The duel is over," he said. "I didn't come to conquer your world. I came to understand it." Conqueror stayed on the ground, her chest rising and falling, her mind torn apart by what just happened. No one had ever shown her such restraint. No one had ever defeated her and then offered peace. The king's voice boomed from above. "You should kill him, Conqueror. Restore your honor." But Conqueror didn't move. She stared at Ryan, trying to read his calm expression. Finally, she stood again, her voice low but steady. "Father, I made a vow. I said I would obey the one who could defeat me." "And he did." Gasps spread through the crowd. The king rose to his feet in disbelief. "You cannot mean to serve a human." Conqueror turned her head toward him. He fought with strength beyond power. He fought with reason. He fought with mercy. "I will keep my word." Ryan looked at her, surprised by her sincerity. He hadn't expected her to truly honor the vow. As they stood in the silent arena, something changed between them. The crowd didn't know what to feel, shame, fear, or awe. The mighty warrior princess had chosen to obey a human. Ryan broke the silence first. "You don't have to follow me," he said gently. "I didn't come for obedience." Conqueror's golden eyes softened. "Then why did you fight?" Ryan looked up at the alien sky. "To stop what's coming." The crowd murmured again, confused by his words. But Conqueror felt a chill in her chest. She didn't know what he meant, but for the first time she wanted to find out. She lowered her head slightly. Then tell me, human, what is coming? Ryan met her gaze. War. The word echoed across the arena, hanging heavy in the air. The crowd that had once cheered now stood in silence. The duel was over, but something far greater had begun. The word war hung in the air long after the battle ended. The crowd didn't cheer this time. The arena that once echoed with roars now fell silent. The human had spoken a word that carried weight even the Vexar could feel. Kalira stood beside Ryan, her spear planted in the sand, her mind spinning. She had made a vow before all her people to obey the one who could defeat her. And now that person was a human. Ryan didn't look proud. He didn't even celebrate. He just stood quietly, breathing slowly, eyes scanning the alien faces around him. He looked more like a man carrying a burden than a victor claiming glory. The Vexar King's voice thundered from above. Kalira, you will not obey this human. He is weak, he is flesh and bone. We are warriors born of flame. Kalira didn't look up. Father, I gave my word. Our law is clear. I cannot break it. Gasps spread through the stands. The king's rage filled the air, but he said nothing more. His own law had trapped him. Ryan turned to her and spoke softly. You don't need to follow me. I didn't come for servants. I came to warn your people. Kalira frowned. Warn us of what? He looked out toward the distant horizon. The twin suns shimmered like burning eyes. A storm. One your empire doesn't see coming. She tilted her head. You speak in riddles, human. What storm? The kind that doesn't bring rain, Ryan said. The kind that brings fire. She studied him for a long moment. There was no lie in his eyes. No weakness either. Something about his calm made her uneasy. She was used to warriors shouting, boasting, and threatening. But this man spoke quietly, and his silence carried power. The arena guard stepped forward, ready to seize Ryan, but Kalira raised her hand. He is under my protection. Touch him and you face me. The soldiers froze. No one dared to defy her. Ryan looked surprised. You don't have to do that. She glanced at him sharply. I swore to obey the one who defeated me. That means your fight is mine now. He sighed. You're making this harder than it should be. Kalira smirked faintly. Welcome to Vexar. Later in the royal halls, Kalira walked beside him as curious alien servants stared. Whispers followed them through every corridor. A princess walking beside a human, it was unthinkable. Some glared with disgust, others with fear. Ryan didn't react. He focused on the path ahead, hands behind his back. She finally asked, You said you came to stop a war. How can one human stop the armies of Vexar? Ryan stopped walking and turned to her. Because your enemy isn't human. That answer made her pause. Then who? He hesitated. Something older. Something that destroyed worlds before yours ever learned to build ships. It's spreading again. And your people are next. Kalira folded her arms, skeptical. We are the strongest in this sector. We fear no one. Ryan looked at her, his eyes steady. That's what every fallen world once said. For the first time in years, Kalira didn't know how to answer. She studied his face. There was no arrogance, no fear. Just truth, and it disturbed her. That night, the alien city glowed with its usual red light. Ryan stood on the palace balcony, watching the stars above. Kalira joined him quietly, her silver armor reflecting the moons. Why fight me if your goal wasn't conquest? She asked softly. Because words wouldn't have worked, he replied. Your people only listen to strength. She nodded slowly. Then you understand us better than most humans. I understand pride, Ryan said. And I know what it costs. Kalira turned to him. You think my pride will destroy us? He looked into her golden eyes. If you don't learn what real strength means, yes. There was a long silence. For the first time in her life, Kalira didn't feel anger at being challenged. She felt something different. Respect. He had beaten her in battle, but now he was winning something far deeper. Her trust. When he finally turned to leave, she spoke again, her voice quiet but steady. Ryan Cross, from this day forward my blade is yours. He looked back at her, half smiling. Then let's make sure we use it for peace, not war. Kalira's eyes softened. She didn't know why, but she believed him. Far above them, lightning cracked across the dark sky. It was the first sign of the storm he had spoken of. And deep in her heart, Kalira knew that whatever it was, this human would be at the center of it. The next morning, the twin suns rose over Vexar Prime, painting the metal city in crimson light. The grand towers shimmered like blades, and the banners of the royal house waved in the hot wind. From her balcony, Kalira watched her people begin their daily training in the courtyard below. Hundreds of soldiers moved in perfect rhythm, their movements sharp and disciplined. She had trained with them since childhood. She had fought beside them. But now for the first time she saw something different in their eyes. Blind pride. The human's words still echoed in her mind. Your enemy isn't human. Ryan stood a few steps behind her, quiet as always. He wore the same simple black uniform from the arena, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the alien world like a man studying a puzzle. Kalira turned to him. You said something older is coming. What did you mean? Ryan took a slow breath. A force we call the Voidborn. They consume everything, flesh, metal, and light. They erase entire civilizations. I tracked their signals here. They're close, Kalira frowned. That's impossible. We have defense fleets, planetary shields, sentinels on every moon. Ryan met her gaze. The Voidborn don't fight with ships. They infect minds. They turn soldiers into enemies. Her eyes narrowed. You mean they control people? He nodded. They start with leaders, kings, generals, sometimes even warriors. Kalira felt a chill crawl down her spine. And you think they've reached Vexar? Ryan looked past her toward the horizon. I think they already have. Before she could answer, the door to her chamber burst open. General Torvak, a towering alien with deep scars across his face, stormed in. His armor clanked with every step. Princess, he said, bowing briefly. Though his tone carried none of the respect his words suggested. The council demands an explanation. Why is the human still alive? Kalira straightened. Because I gave my word. He is under my protection. Torvak's golden eyes narrowed. He humiliated you in front of all Vexar. You would defend that shame? Ryan spoke before she could. I didn't humiliate her. I saved her from what's coming. The general glared at him. Silence, human. You speak only when spoken to. Ryan didn't move. Then speak quickly. The general's tail lashed behind him in anger, but Kalira raised her hand. Enough, the human stays. Torvak clenched his fists. Then the council will decide your fate, princess. You have broken tradition. He turned sharply and stormed out. When he was gone, Kalira exhaled slowly. They will not let this go. Ryan nodded. I know. That's why we have to move fast, she frowned. Move? Where? To the outer vaults, Ryan said. Your empire keeps old war archives there. I need to see them. They might hold signs of the Voidborn. Kalira hesitated. The outer vaults were forbidden to all but the royal family and council. But something in Ryan's voice made her trust him again. That night they left the palace in secret. The moons of Vexar hung low as they crossed the metallic plains. The air shimmered with heat, and in the distance, the great storm Ryan had warned about began to form, dark clouds pulsing with strange violet light. When they reached the vaults, Kalira pressed her hand against the ancient door. Blue energy scanned her and allowed entry. Inside, rows of crystal tablets glowed with records of every war the Vexar had ever fought. Ryan moved between them quickly, scanning the alien texts. It's here, he murmured. Look at this pattern. The same signal that destroyed the Arin colonies a century ago. Your people found traces of it, then covered it up. Kalira's heart pounded. Why would they hide this? Ryan looked at her. Because pride blinds even the strongest. She turned toward the doorway, her eyes burning with anger and fear. If the council knew and they said nothing. They're already infected, Ryan finished. Suddenly the lights in the vault flickered. The air grew heavy. A strange whispering sound filled the chamber, crawling through the walls like a living thing. Ryan's hand went to his blade. They found us, Kalira grabbed her spear. Who? Ryan's voice dropped. Not who. What? The shadows on the walls began to move, stretching, twisting, forming shapes that didn't belong to this world. Kalira's eyes widened. The Voidborn. Ryan nodded once. Now you see why I came. And as the darkness surrounded them, the Princess of Vexar realized the human's words had not been a warning. They had been a prophecy. The shadows moved like living smoke, curling across the walls of the vault. They whispered in voices that did not belong to any creature Kalira had ever known. Words without sound, faces without form. Ryan stepped in front of her, blade drawn, eyes scanning the darkness. His voice was low but steady. Don't listen to them. They feed on thought, on fear. Kalira gripped her spear tighter. What are they saying? He glanced back at her. They're offering lies. The shadows thickened. They began to take shape. Ghostly outlines of soldiers, kings, and even Kalira herself. Their faces twisted into mockery. One of them spoke in her own voice, cruel and cold. You kneel to a human. You shame your people. Kalira's tail lashed behind her. You're not real, she said, stepping forward. You're nothing. Ryan moved quickly, grabbing her arm. Ignore them. If you answer, they grow stronger. The shadow laughed, a sound that crawled beneath the skin. Then as fast as it came, it faded. The lights flickered once more and returned to normal. Kalira exhaled, her chest heavy. Are they gone? Ryan shook his head. Not gone. Just watching. He looked around the vault, eyes narrowing. We can't stay here. If the council knows what we've found, they'll come after us. Kalira frowned. The council would not. But before she could finish, the vault doors opened with a loud metallic crash. General Torvak stepped inside with a squad of armed guards. Their weapons glowed with electric energy. His voice thundered through the chamber. I told you the council would decide your fate. You have betrayed the crown, princess. Kalira's heart sank. Torvak, you don't understand. The enemy is real. The Voidborn, he cut her off. Lies. The human filled your head with weakness. Ryan stood between her and the soldiers. You're already infected, General. The shadows took you first. Torvak smiled, a strange, unnatural smile. You talk too much, human. Without warning, the soldiers opened fire. Blue energy bolts scorched the walls, shattering the crystal tablets. Ryan grabbed Kalira's hand and pulled her behind a pillar. The vault filled with blinding flashes and echoes of chaos. Kalira shouted over the noise. There's a hidden exit. Show me. Ryan yelled back. She led him down a narrow corridor behind the archives. The sound of footsteps and energy fire followed close behind. The air grew hot as the vault systems began to overload. Cracks of purple lightning spread through the floor. Signs of the Voidborn corruption eating into the structure. Ryan and Kalira reached a sealed hatch. She pressed her palm against it, but it didn't open. It's locked. The system's corrupted. Ryan pulled a small metallic device from his belt and placed it on the control pad. It sparked, hummed, then burst with light. The door slid open. They slipped through just as the vault behind them exploded. The shockwave threw them forward, tumbling down a slope of metal debris. Ryan hit the ground hard but rolled to his feet. He reached for Kalira and pulled her up. Her armor was cracked, her face streaked with dust and blood. Still, she stood strong. We can't go back, Ryan said. They'll hunt us. Kalira looked toward the distant towers of her city. The once bright capital now glowed with strange purple veins. The infection had spread faster than she imagined. My people, she whispered. They don't know what's coming. Ryan touched her shoulder gently. Then we make them see. They moved through the ruins, sticking to the shadows. Patrol ships flew overhead, scanning the ground for movement. Alarms echoed through the city. Every screen showed the same message. The princess has betrayed Vexar. Capture on sight. Kalira stopped for a moment, staring at the glowing symbol of her family crest displayed beside her image. They turned me into an enemy overnight. Ryan looked at her, his expression calm. Truth is always called betrayal before it's understood. She gave a faint smile. You speak like a philosopher, human. He shook his head. Just someone who's seen too many wars start the same way. As they reached the edge of the city, the ground trembled. In the distance, a massive storm cloud formed again, dark, pulsating, and alive. From its heart, shapes began to fall, landing across the planet's surface. Kalira's eyes widened. Is that them? Ryan's voice turned grim. Yes, the Voidborn are here. He turned toward her, determination burning in his eyes. We can't run anymore. We need to fight back. Kalira gripped her spear tightly, her fear melting into resolve. Then we fight together. And as lightning split the sky above them, the human and the alien warrior disappeared into the storm, no longer hunter and prey, but allies against the darkness that hung over their world. The storm had swallowed the horizon. Purple lightning tore across the black sky, and the once bright city of Vexar was now a shadow of itself. Fires burned across the towers, and the air trembled with strange whispers that carried the voices of the Voidborn. Ryan and Kalira moved through the ruins silently. Every street, every corridor was filled with echoes of chaos. soldiers fighting their own reflections, machines turning against their masters. The infection had spread. The proud empire of the Vexar was falling from within. Kalira stopped near a shattered statue of her ancestors. The faces carved in stone looked cold, distant, and proud. She stared at them for a long time. All my life I was told we were born perfect. Stronger than all others. But look at us now. We are destroying ourselves. Ryan stood beside her, his voice calm. You were taught to fear weakness. But what you called weakness is what makes us human. It's what allows us to change. She turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. You think I can change them? My people, my father? Ryan met her gaze. No, I think you have to try. Before she could respond, the sound of engines echoed above. Vexar ships circled the skies, their searchlights sweeping the ruins. Through the dust, Kalira could see the royal insignia, the king's personal fleet. Her jaw tightened. They've come for me. Ryan looked up. Then this is the moment you choose who you are. The ships landed in a storm of dust. From their ramps emerged lines of soldiers, led by the king himself. He was tall and powerful, his armor gleaming golden black, his crown shaped like a blade. His eyes glowed with the same purple hue that filled the storm. Kalira's heart sank. Father. The king's voice was cold and distant. My daughter, you have betrayed your blood. You brought this disease to our world. Ryan stepped forward. She's not the cause. The Voidborn infected your council before she ever knew I existed. The king raised his arm, energy crackling between his fingers. Silence, human. Your words mean nothing here. Kalira's tail lashed behind her. Father, listen to him. The shadows you see in the sky, they are real. They are not ours. But her father only smiled, a cruel, empty smile. Do you think I don't know what they are? I welcome them. They showed me power beyond death. Ryan's eyes widened. You let them in. The king raised his hand. Power demands sacrifice. My people will evolve through this storm. The weak will fade. The strong will rise. Kalira took a step forward, her voice trembling with both fury and heartbreak. You call this strength? You call this power? You've become their slave. The king's gaze turned sharp. Then you stand with the human? I stand for what's left of my people, she said. And for what's right. He laughed darkly. Then prove it. Challenge me, daughter. Show me the strength you've learned from your pet human. Ryan looked at her. You don't have to fight him. He's already lost. Kalira shook her head slowly. No, I have to. Not for victory, but for truth. She stepped into the storm, facing her father. The winds howled. Lightning flashed, and the ground trembled under their power. The king charged first, his energy blades slicing through the air. Kalira blocked with her spear, sparks flying as their weapons clashed. Each strike carried the weight of their history, her childhood, her training, her duty. Every movement was a memory of who she once was and who she refused to be now. Ryan watched from the edge of the battlefield, ready to intervene if she fell, but he saw something in her eyes, a new kind of fire. Not the pride of a warrior, but the strength of someone fighting for a future. The battle raged until Kalira found an opening. With a roar that shook the sky, she drove her spear into her father's chest. The light in his eyes flickered. For a moment, the purple glow faded and his true voice returned. My daughter, he whispered weakly, you were always meant to be more than me. He fell to the ground and the storm began to calm. Kalira stood there breathing hard, tears mixing with the rain. Ryan walked up beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. You did what had to be done. She didn't look at him. No, I did what I chose. The lightning faded, leaving behind silence. In that silence, Kalira made her decision. She would not lead her people through fear or pride. She would lead them through hope. She turned to Ryan, her eyes steady. You said humanity survives because it changes. Then teach me how. Ryan smiled faintly. Then let's start rebuilding before the storm comes again. As they walked away from the fallen king, the first light of dawn broke through the dark clouds. For the first time in her life, Kalira felt something new, freedom. But in the depths of space, far beyond the stars, the true Voidborn stirred. The war was not over. It had just begun. The first dawn in weeks broke over Vexar Prime. The sky that once burned with storms now glowed soft and golden. The city still smoked, its towers broken and scarred. But for the first time, there was silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence after survival. Kalira stood at the edge of the royal citadel, looking over her world. The battle had ended. The infection was gone. The king, her father, had fallen, but his people lived. The air smelled of rain and metal. The sun touched the cracked walls, and light returned to the places that had been buried in darkness. Ryan stood beside her, his black uniform torn and burned, his face marked with dust. Yet his eyes still carried that same calm strength, the kind that never needed armor. Kalira turned to him. "You said the Voidborn never stop. That they always return." Ryan nodded slowly. "They always test the living. But now your people know what to fight for." She looked down at her hands, still trembling from the battle. "For years I thought strength meant never bending, never showing weakness. But you showed me something else." Ryan smiled faintly. "Strength isn't about never falling. It's about standing again when the world expects you to stay down." Her golden eyes softened. "Then humanity must be the strongest species I've ever met." He chuckled quietly. "Sometimes I think we just refuse to quit." Below them, the remaining Vexar soldiers gathered among the ruins. They were tired, wounded, and unsure of what to do. Their leader was gone. Their laws had fallen with him. Kalira stepped forward to the edge of the balcony. When she spoke, her voice carried across the wind. "My people, our empire believed strength was the right to rule. We believed power came from conquest, but today we learned the truth. Strength is not what you take, it's what you protect." The crowd below listened in silence. Even the soldiers who had once called her traitor now lowered their heads. "I fought beside a human," she continued. "He defeated me not with force but with understanding. He taught me that mercy is not weakness. It is the greatest power of all." Ryan watched quietly as she spoke. The princess who once stood above all others now spoke as one of them, not a ruler of fear but a leader of hope. Kalira raised her spear high. "From this day, Vexar will no longer seek war. We will rebuild, and when the shadows come again, we will stand not alone but beside those who showed us another way." The soldiers began to cheer, slow at first, then louder, until the sound filled the entire city. The name Kalira echoed across the ruins, not as a warrior but as a savior. Ryan smiled faintly. "You just changed the course of a world." She turned to him, a small, warm smile forming on her lips. "No, we did." For a moment they stood in silence, the wind lifting the ashes into the light. Two different species, once enemies, now bound by something stronger than any vow. Trust. Ryan looked up at the stars, his eyes distant. Somewhere out there, the Voidborn are still watching. They'll return one day. Kalira stepped closer, her voice steady. "Then we'll be ready, and this time they'll find more than warriors waiting. They'll find humanity in us." He looked at her, and for the first time since his mission began, he smiled without the weight of fear. "Then maybe my job here is done." Kalira shook her head gently. "No, human. It has only begun." The suns rose higher, lighting their faces in gold. Around them, alien and human engineers began clearing rubble, tending to the wounded, and rebuilding what was lost. Hope had taken root in the ashes of pride. As Ryan turned to leave, Kalira reached out and touched his arm. "You defeated me once," she said softly. "Now I choose to walk beside you, wherever your path leads." He looked at her hand, then at her eyes, and nodded. Then we walked together. They stepped forward through the dawn, side by side, the last soldier of Earth and the first reborn princess of Vexar. Above them, the sky cleared completely, and for a brief, beautiful moment, the world felt whole again. And somewhere, beyond the stars, in the dark between galaxies, the Voidborn stirred. But this time something in the universe had changed. A single human had shown that mercy could defeat fear, and mercy had a name. Ryan Cross.